Sometimes, even if money is not their motive, using a dating online service does have its inbuilt dangers. Look at this. For example, you may be a person of faith, and you may think, well, I'll go and use a faith-based dating website because, that way I feel more comfortable in who I'm going to meet. Look at this.
This defendant is a very dangerous serial date rapist and potentially a sociopath.
Strong words about a former naval officer convicted today of raping women he met on internet dating sites. Sean Banks used Christian Mingle and Match.com to target women of faith. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. 10 News reporter Jennifer Jensen is live at the El Cajon courthouse. And Jen, the prosecutor says this case has a message for all women.
Well, using Banks as an example, the prosecutor talked about how Banks would groom women. He would get to know them, get them to trust him over days, weeks, even months, but he was hiding his true intentions.
Number 11.
This defendant is a very dangerous serial date rapist and potentially a sociopath.
Harsh words from prosecutor David Williams III as he reacted to the conviction of 38-year-old Sean Banks.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Sean Patrick Banks, guilty of the crime of rape of an intoxicated woman.
The former Navy lieutenant showed little emotion inside the El Cajon courtroom as jurors found him guilty on 5 counts of forcible rape of an unconscious person, and burglary stemming from 2 separate incidents. He was found not guilty of trying to dissuade a witness.
Sean Banks would spend weeks, if not months, grooming these victims, making them believe that he was an honest, trustworthy, and Christian man.
One victim testified that the two met on Christian Mingle, where they talked about God, faith, and the Bible. Back in 2012, they decided to meet at her La Mesa apartment to watch a movie, but she testified that Banks became forceful.
So that is a good warning to so many people that just because you use a, quote, Christian website doesn't give you any guarantees. Okay, the second type, which is what probably we want to focus on today, is online websites, where you will cultivate and start cultivating a friendship, looking for love with a potential suitor that you meet online. Sometimes it's referred to as catfishing when the perpetrator uses somebody else's identity. It all came from an online, a TV program called Catfish. So they create fake personal profiles or use somebody else's identity to pretend to be somebody other than themselves. So who are these people?
Now to a story you saw first on 2. A Texas woman scammed out of thousands of dollars. 2 people now arrested, and the ploy investigators say they used involved convincing people on social media that they are talking to pop superstar Bruno Mars. That is not what I like. Andy Sirota covering this wild story tonight. Andy?
Dominique, investigators calling the masterminds of schemes like this predators because they seek out and take advantage of mature women who are on social media just simply looking for companionship. This scheme, we are told, was likely hatched overseas in a foreign country on the other side of the world. A 65-year-old North Texas woman is out $100,000 after she fell in love with someone who was pretending to be Bruno Mars. Cybercrimes prosecutors say he befriended her on Instagram, convinced her that he was the famous entertainer and that he needed help with his touring expenses. According to court papers, a man identifying himself as Bruno Man promised he was quitting his current tour to be with her.
You'll spend months talking to people online. Sometimes they'll even borrow a little bit of money and return it to build up trust. And they're not stupid people, these scammers. They are very much sophisticated con artists.
Authorities say they had help. Basil Amadi and Chinwendu Azuanwu, 2 men in Houston who opened up the 2 different bank accounts where she was instructed to send the money to. One check for $10,000, followed by another for $90,000.
And what these people do is they will recruit people to open up bank accounts. So what you have is you have the people at the bottom opening the bank accounts, people in the middle that are doing the recruiting and communicating with the hackers, and the hackers.
One of those men went before a judge to hear the allegations against him.
Charged with the third-degree felony of money laundering.
Prosecutors hope the two men cooperate so they can find out more about who recruited them.
Because that's who we're interested in.
Now, I know some of you watching this go, well, that'll never happen to me. I mean, anyone knows that Bruno Mars is not short of money, so he's not going to be asking. But it's not just that, because if we start judging other victims and saying, well, I wouldn't be as stupid as that person, that actually, pride comes before a fall. I just wanted to show you that as one extreme example. But here is somebody posing as a celebrity, but using Instagram. You know, all these different social media outlets are being flooded by crooks. So again, it sometimes gives us a false sense of security. Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, which I call fake book sometimes. You know, these are all venues and conduits for the crooks. Oh, yeah, sorry. So sometimes the crooks are even operating not from overseas, but from within United States prisons. You know, it is very easy, unfortunately, to smuggle a cell phone into prison. And how do some of these crooks spend their time? On a cell phone, portraying themselves as being somebody else. Or they could be overseas with other co-conspirators working domestically within the United States of America. So for example, in Virginia, a man originally from Ghana in Virginia swindled Chesapeake Bay, a victim out of over $300,000. And you know, again, it's the classic example of he needed money to buy for his business. And here's another one in Kansas City, Missouri, another Ghana native residing in Virginia, indicted on the sweepstakes scam. Here's a couple of co-conspirators from Maryland who are working with other co-conspirators outside of the country to receive and launder payments from victims. Here's a fella from living in Scotland, targeted 500 victims on Snapchat with the romance scam. Here's one from Oklahoma, again convicted of money laundering, multiple victims, including older Americans, millions of dollars. So it goes on. So let's break this down and see what kind of consistent red flags we should be looking for.
Looking for love in all the right places, like popular dating sites, mobile apps, and social networking sites? Ron seems like a perfect match for you. He's thoughtful and says he can't live without you. He says he's from the US but works out of the country. He says he wants to visit but says he can't afford it. He asks you to send him money. Last month, it was medical bills for a sick aunt. This month, he needs money to fix his car. Next month, who knows? Ron wants your money. Don't send it. The person pretending to be Ron is a scammer. He'll tell you anything to get you to wire cash right away. He'll never run out of excuses. If an online love interest asks you for money, walk away, no matter how compelling the story. Report scams at ftc.gov/imposters.
Okay, we need that to sink in. If anybody online asks you for money, even if it's $5, run away, delete them, okay? We say that, but unfortunately, right now, there are victims who are not listening to that and they're giving money. So right now, there are scammers trolling, literally trolling the internet looking for victims, stealing identities, creating a favorable, attractive profile.
So I think this is interesting. More than 1/3 of all couples now meet online, many of them on dating websites. Yeah.
Unfortunately, those dating sites are also prime ground for scammers looking to prey on broken-hearted folks out there. Well, consumer reporter John Matarese is on your side with a warning everyone using these sites needs to hear.
If you're single and looking for a partner or recently divorced, an online dating site can be the answer to your prayers. But these cyber dating sites come with a real risk. One Warren County woman recently shared her story to warn others. She's a 9-to-5 office worker. He was a handsome U.S. serviceman, and it looked as though it could blossom into the romance of her life.
He told me he was from New York and that he was stationed in Kabul right now. And he had a almost 16-year-old son and was looking for the love of his life because his wife had passed away several years ago.
Kathy, who asked that we not use her last name, found James, a strapping 50-something sergeant on a dating site.
I received an email that said, "Hey, you look interesting. I want to meet you."
Soon, she says, their conversations over books and wine turned into declarations of love. His messages saying, "I pledge my heart and all my love."
I was the love of his life, and he knew that God had sent me into his life for a reason.
But just as he was about to visit her during a leave, a snag developed, and he needed some money.
He sent me a list that totaled $300, and I said, "No, I'm not sending you that. I can't afford that." And he said, "Well, how much can you afford?"
Kathy got suspicious.
I asked him repeatedly to verify his name, his rank, his serial number. And he said because of the job that he's doing in Kabul, he couldn't release that information.
At that point, she started searching online and found her James showing up all over dating sites as a...
Okay, so anybody that you meet online that you've never met in person or even on Skype, if they start calling you honey, run away, okay? If they start using the religion, God has brought us together, huge red flag. And then, of course, if they're asking you for money, run away. Here's another victim story. Again, they went onto a Christian website, said he was a missionary, started talking, needed money. And it was, thankfully, it was just $3,500, but even so, this person's heart is broken. And here's another victim story.
I look at it now and I think, how could I be so naive?
This woman is still healing after losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a scam and has asked us not to use her name. The 79-year-old ballroom dance executive says it happened after she decided to use an online dating service.
He was calling all the time. Almost every day he would call to see how I was. He also realized how musical I was or am and that I enjoyed dancing. So he would send a lot of music videos.
They decided to meet, but the man who said he was a general contractor abruptly needed to go to Malaysia for work. At one point, he said he needed money for a construction license.
The answers were always legitimate in my mind. And so I sent him the first $9,000.
Over several weeks, she sent more money. In all, more than $400,000.
And, you know, one thing that strikes me about this lady, I mean, she's articulate. She is clearly not in any kind of cognitive impairment, but it was her heart. And you could just tell what a lovely, lovely lady she is. And she allowed her heart to dictate all her decision making. And yet more stories.
One of the most costly scams in America is now fueled by a pandemic that's making it even more effective. We're talking about romance scams. The Federal Trade Commission says even before COVID hit, a 40% spike last year led to $200 million in losses. And in tonight's special report, a warning, lonely hearts may be even more vulnerable now that scammers have another edge.
This is him down here.
Judy Vaughn just isn't ready to delete these photos from her cell phone. She's saved every message.
James, I always loved you.
Since James Hackett met her online 3 years ago.
We would talk every day, half the night. He was always there to talk to me.
Kind words, even love songs that Vaughn admits filled a hole left by the death of her husband of 38 years. The two exchanged intimate details about their lives as this Anderson grandmother on disability learned Hackett was divorced and serving overseas. Vaughn says about a year into their online relationship, he told her he wanted to start a life with her, if only she could pay for his leave, $4,500.
My daughter-in-law looked him up on the computer, and it come up that he was a scammer. That was right at the beginning, and I didn't believe her.
What do you think of that now in hindsight?
I was crazy, and
crazy in love. Over the next 2 years, Vaughn continued to honor his request for money, even as the total climbed to $10,000.
I know not to send this money. You're going to send it anyway.
But his lies were catching up, and Vaughn sought the help of socialcatfish.com to figure out who he really was. The company tracked the photos of the man who called himself James Hackett to this real dog trainer in Russia whose identity was stolen.
We've seen an increase across the board of images being stolen from people and people being contacted by scammers.
David McClellan, the president of Social Catfish, warns romance scams are on the rise during the pandemic as more are forced online and scammers have a better excuse not to meet in person. He says many of the con artists live across the world in Nigeria. One scammer from Lagos agreed to talk to us.
I'm not just scamming for just the money. Scamming for survival. A friend of mine introduced me to some kind of illegal way of getting money from white people. So I asked him to teach me. I mean, I had no choice.
The man, who calls himself Kelly, says they target people online who are widowed or divorced.
You open dating site, you look for a picture of a doctor from Instagram.
The scammer told us they use a playbook of sorts. Social Catfish obtained this one that teaches others how to lure in their prey. And behind all these come-ons, they've gone high-tech, some changing their IP address to make it look like they're in the U.S.
Or they're buying Facebook accounts that were created 8 years ago, and they're creating these profiles so that, when Facebook has their algorithms and all these different things, they have their guard down.
Vaughn takes responsibility too, but as the saying goes, the heart has reasons that reason doesn't know, and she's just not ready to say goodbye.
The part of me that probably still cares for him because he was so nice to me.
So how about that? Here's a victim. She knows she's a victim, but there's part of her that won't let go. And it just shows how deeply impacted, almost brainwashed, I suppose you could say, so many of these victims are. So there are lots of consistent red flags. And so if you are on a website and you're on this webinar now, there are certain things that should trigger some concerns if you see these on here. So if they use either a military background or an impressive professional career that actually attracted you in the first place, where they might start off on the website but then try to maneuver the victim through a private or personal texting channel away from the website. And this is huge. They will never, ever agree to a FaceTime or a Zoom or a Skype call, because if they do, their real identity is blown, because they've already sent you, for example, a driver's license photograph. So you think you know what this person looks like. So if the suspect really got on FaceTime to go, wait a minute, that's not you. So that's why they'll always come up with a reason why they can't ever do a face-to-face on-camera chat. And then they will make plans to meet you. And you're going to get really excited about these plans and make dates, confirm them in the calendar. And then guess what happens? Suddenly, the planned rendezvous is canceled because of an emergency, maybe a medical problem, or, hey, I've just been called overseas. My company wants me to go to this place. I'm going to be out of action for a little while. And now they want you to send money immediately. Maybe some accident has befallen them. Maybe they need money to assist with their business venture, which is going to multiply, and then you're going to get back lots more money. So it's kind of like an investment opportunity for you.
Friends, are you looking for love? Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and daters beware, because that online flame can break your heart and burn a hole in your wallet. And not just because of a successful date, a good date, or something that made you happy. Romance scams seem to be on the increase. There were more than 21,000 reports last year. That's according to the Federal Trade Commission. The median individual loss was about $2,600. That's a lot of money. A woman who spoke to NBC News says she met a man claiming to be a doctor who asked for a $100 Amazon gift card. Last year, our sister station in Minnesota followed a group of women to Texas as their scammer faced a judge. The man was posing as a military war hero online. And then he left a trail of victims all across the United States, conning them out of thousands of dollars.
So you get the gist of this. A trail of victims on that piece there, all seeking justice. 5, 6 ladies, all conned out of the same by the same guy.